and welcome to the Side Netting podcast, where every Thursday or whatever day you happen to be checking in on us, we'll be discussing the latest goings on in the world of football, previewing the weekend ahead, and throwing in some games and some tangents as well. I'm joined, as always, by my friend, my cousin, but most importantly, my co-host, Kieran Burke. Kieran, how are you going?
Good afternoon. We're doing well. It's a busy day so far with the move to the Thursday, but nice to sprinkle in a bit of fun to the afternoon. So we're looking forward to the next hour.
Yeah, well, in podcast terms, it was only a few days ago we spoke with the new move every Thursday. Myself and Kieran will be coming to you.
Lucky people.
Oh, lucky for them all, mate. So we'll jump straight into it. The other day, we were discussing the Premier League and our predictions for the season, where all the teams were going to finish. We got to 10th in the league, so we'll jump straight into it. We'll go from 11th to 15th. So Kieran, if you run your 11th to 15th down with me, I'll throw my own in. We'll have a little chat on these sort of what I expect to be the clump of teams that aren't really up the top, they aren't really down the bottom, they just sort of end up thrown in a range of different numbers.
Yeah, let's do it. So 11th then, I've got Brentford. 12th, I've got Burnley. 13th, I've got Fulham. 14th, I've got West Ham. And 15th, I've got Bournemouth. Obviously, let's see how yours matches up to that, and we'll have a little chat around those teams.
So 11th, I've got Nottingham Forest. 12th, okay. I've got Crystal Palace. 13th, I've got Bournemouth. 14th, I've got Burnley. And 15th, I've got Fulham.
Okay, similar clump of teams there then. So I think we were just saying before this, you know, there's always that kind of middle clump of teams that are pretty interchangeable. You think they're safe, but they're never really gonna do too much damage. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Obviously, I had Brentford in 11th. I think you had them in your top half, actually.
I had them 10th.
Touching on last week. Does Raya leaving have any impact on that for you? Would you change that at all, or are you still pretty happy with that?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you there, Keys. I think it'll depend on if they bring in a goalkeeper, which I expect them to, and who that goalkeeper is.
Yeah.
So I think I'm sort of toing and throwing on it. I think I'm going to stick with them at 10th, as I was saying the other day. I think all the reasons I listed for them to be in 10th don't change too much with Raya, depending on who the new goalkeeper will be. So I think we'll keep them there for now. Yeah,
obviously Tinie be a big miss out for a few months on the back of his betting ban there. I think around that kind of, obviously you've got 10th, got 11th. I think they're a very solid team, tough to beat. I just can't see them threatening too much at the top half of the table. So I think we're pretty in agreement on that. Who remind me who you had in 11th?
I had Nottingham Forest.
Okay, I've got them a bit lower down than you. What are your thoughts on Nottingham Forest then?
It just feels like a lot of the narrative with Nottingham Forest last season was they signed 1 million players. How are they going to survive? And it feels like they ended up by the end of the season with a team they were quite happy. Steve Cooper was quite happy with. They managed to survive, and I think they've added 1 or 2 signings that could help that team. And it's always that thing of, the signings are pro, are they a con when you've got so many players? I think this season they're going to help them. I think they sort of filtered through your Lingard as a prime example, as someone they brought in who just didn't make any impact, as opposed to Morgan Gibbs-White, who I think is going to be a massive player for them this season. And I think they'll just end up as that. I don't know if it'll be 11th, but those sort of top couple of places in the second half of the table, as we've been touching on with these teams. I don't think either of us are dead set on any of these exact positions for these teams, but somewhere between 11th and 15th, I think Forest will comfortably find themselves in.
Okay. Yeah, Gibbs-White, I think we discussed him on a previous podcast when we were discussing the under-21 Euros. He was a player who looked very good there. Obviously one of the more senior members of that squad, but I think he stepped up, took accountability, and sort of was a big reason for their success. So be interesting to see how he gets on this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a player that in Premier League terms is only maturing as he ages, 23, I think?
I believe so, yeah.
So you think that with Morgan Gibbs-White is a player that feels like he's been around for a very long time at this point, but he's only coming into his sort of peak 4 or 5 years now as a player, and I think he could really have a good season with Nottingham Forest, and that will just propel them up the second half of the table.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I've got them a bit lower down. I'll touch on that when we go into our kind of bottom 5.
Yeah, so we'll have a discussion on that then.
That's all good. 12th then, I've gone for Burnley. So I think you had them in that kind of middle clump of 5 teams.
Yeah, so I had them 14th. So in that same clump.
Yeah, so I think Burnley is an interesting one. Obviously, a lot of the time when the new teams come up, a lot of people will have them just to go straight back down. There's always the questions over whether, they can adapt to the Prem. It's completely different when you're dominating games all season in the Championship, and then you go like away to the Etihad or away to Anfield and you barely touch the ball. Can you get results? So be interesting to see. I just think they're a very solid team. They ran away with the Championship last season. Obviously, speaking of the under-21 Euros, they've obviously got James Trafford in goal, who looks a class little keeper. Few other players in that team. I think Jay Rodriguez is still with Burnley, who obviously Prem experience in there. I just think they're a team that knows the league. Burnley have always been a team that were in the Prem for quite a long time. Obviously, Company managing them. I just think that they'll get a good few results, and I can't see them being too much in danger, to be honest. I think they'll be quite comfortable.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement with that. In the opposite way of, we were talking about Raya a moment ago and how much will losing a really strong goalkeeper affect Brentford. I think getting in James Trafford, a very strong goalkeeper, is someone that's going to really be a boost to this Burnley team. And it's not what I think both of us, like when you think of Burnley, think like Sean Dyche, negative, defensive football.
Brexit ball.
And what Company's done in the Championship has been the complete opposite of that. They're very forward-thinking, attacking side. They made the loan deal permanent with Obafemi from Swansea, who they had on the team last season as well up top.
They had Taylor Bell. What's his name? Sorry. Centre-back for the under-21s that was in that squad. He was on loan there last season.
Harwood Bellis.
Is there any talk whether he is likely to be made permanent?
No, I don't. There's not been any discussion on it. It felt like he sort of went back to City, and that put paid to it. That was done. There's been no rumours or anything in that sense.
Yeah, can't see him being used at City, especially with Gvardiol coming in. You'd imagine he'd be open to a move. So be interesting to see. Maybe that might be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, they did bring in Dara O'Shea from West Brom at centre-back. That was one of the signings that they made this summer, and Jordan Bayer as well from Borussia Mönchengladbach. So they've got a couple of centre-backs into that team as well. We'll see how they cope and fit into that team. But I think, as we were saying there, it doesn't feel like they're a team, and we'll get into it when we discuss the other two promoted teams, who are going to be a real battering stick for... Battering stick? No. Battering...
we'll go with battering stick.
They're going to be a battering stick, kids. I'm always talking about the battering stick.
Sounds a bit like a Scottish delicacy.
Well, it's either that or like a BDSM thing.
either or. Maybe it's a Scottish BDSM thing. Scottish listeners, let us know.
Drop us a message on Twitter at SideNettingPod if you are Scottish and you either use a battering stick or you have been known to be a battering stick. Who knows?
We've opened ourselves up there to some interesting DMs, so we'll see how that develops.
I'll leave the Twitter admin to you for next week.
I'm steering clear of that.
Sorry, the ex-admin.
Ex-admin, yeah. Oh, God. So 12th then. Still well clear. Who did you have in 12th?
I had Palace. I can't remember. When did you say you had Palace? Did you have them in this clump?
I had them 10th. Yeah, I had them 10th.
Oh, of course you did, Jess.
Briefly, yeah. I think we briefly discussed on the last pod. But yeah, so thoughts on Palace then, briefly?
Well, Hodgson last season, you just felt like he was coming in to be a body, basically, to get them to the end of the season. And he felt like a man reborn. Like, the attack and football that Palace play, some of the results they got in that last run of the season, the way he had that squad ticking. The interesting
there's
thing...
There's life in the old dog yet?
We'll see. Yeah, the interesting thing with Palace, though, is they've not had much recruitment. They've not had any signings. Yeah. And will that be a big impact to them? I don't think so. I think the way Hodgson had his team built, it feels like they're going to be just one of those teams that are going to be a little bit difficult to break down, are going to be very good on the counter. You've got your Elise, Eze, those attacking players that can absolutely brutalise a team's defence. I think they're going to be massive, especially now Zaha's not in there. They're going to have to step up even more so in the terms of goals. I think this middle block for Palace, you obviously have them a couple of places higher, rounding out the top half, but I think we're both in agreement that they're going to be very comfortable come the end of the season.
Yeah, completely agree on that one. Completely agree. 13th then, I've gone Fulham. Again, sort of one of those teams, middle of the road, solid team, quite tough to beat. Got a few good little players in there. The Williams saga did make me laugh. Obviously, he signed on for Fulham and then he's off to Saudi by the looks of it. So that was a strange one. But obviously, Leno in goal, a keeper I rate, very solid when he was with us at Arsenal as well. They've brought in Calvin Bassey from Ajax, who I think looks a very good sign-in. Jimenez as well. So Mitrovic looked to be off, but I think they rejected the bids. So it still remains to be seen whether he's there come the start of the season. Well, he's likely to be there come the start of the season, but whether he leaves by the end of the window. But yeah, I think Fulham, for me, solid team, got a few talented players in there. Pereira as well, who FPL dream, as we're going to touch on FPL next time. Nice little cheap gem.
He was he was an absolute points merchant last season, Pereira.
He was
very.
But
the thing with him though, I was exactly what I was going to say. He's one of those players that you'd have, and every week you started him, he'd get 2 points or a point. And every time you had him on the bench, and you look at Fulham's game, they've got, please don't be him, please don't be him. Yeah. It was him every time without fail. Absolute fucking... You say FPL dream was an FPL fucking nightmare.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Oh god, yeah. We'll get into that in the second half of this podcast, and I'm sure we'll have a few more rants on those bench players that always seem to return when they're not starting. But yeah, Fulham for me, I think they'll have a decent season, but again, not really threatening that top half.
I've got them in 15th. I just feel like this whole pre-season window, which has basically felt like Saudi Arabia against Tony Khan, the owner of Fulham, where the second he gave them a bit of chat back when they came in for Mitrovic. So like, okay, you want to play us at this game, and they've just repeatedly come in. They came in for the manager, they come in for Willian after he'd signed. They're still coming for Mitrovic.
Fuck with the Saudis.
Well, I'm sure. I nearly said a lot of things that I could have been sued for. But let's just say that fucking with the Saudis is something that this sports washing allegations have been pushed because of. But to avoid me ending up in court for defaming Newcastle's new favourite overlords, we'll skip on. And yeah, Mitrovic is there, but a man in there in body, not in mind, it feels like. They just seem like a team that's all over the shop. Marco Silva committing himself could be a big boost for them in terms of motivation. That he didn't take that Saudi money, that he did commit himself to the club. That could be something. But yeah, to me they do feel like a team that's going to be safe, but on the latter end of safe, and could very easily be dragged into a relegation battle if they have a couple of dodgy months in the middle. But I think they'll avoid it. I think there's worse teams than them in the league, and a lot better.
No, agreed on that. I think the last two teams we have in this sort of clump was West Ham and Bournemouth. Was there anyone that I'm missing there?
So I've got Bournemouth. I didn't have West Ham. We'll get to West Ham a little bit later on. Yeah. But I've got Bournemouth in 13th. Okay, where did you have them placed?
Bournemouth, I've gone 15th. Thoughts on Bournemouth for you then?
The new manager, who I think we'll be discussing when we get to a couple of extra predictions we're adding on the end, interestingly. But I think the manager who seems to really focus on that attacking football, he's a protege of Marcelo Bielsa and sort of takes that football and wants to put that in his game, something that he's spoken about in interviews. The signings that they've made, really interesting, especially like Justin Kluivert being one of the big names they've got in across the transfer window. It just feels like they're going to be a really solid team. can sort of bracket them in with a lot of what I said about Palace, where they're going to be a solid team. They're going to come at you. If he plays some of the attacking football that he seems to want to, it could be season 1 Leeds 2.0, and I'm all for that because that was one of the vibiest teams I think we'll ever see in our lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I agree with a lot of those points. I think that I think they'll do decently this season. I've got them slightly lower, 15th, but yeah, I think they're one of those teams. They'll pick up results. They're kind of prone to a bit of a hammering. I think City usually seem to absolutely maul them. I think I remember us drawing 3-3 with them a few seasons back as well when we were 3-0 down.
Well, we just mentioned that vibesy Leeds team. They were a team that were prone to getting a battering themselves because of the attacking football. As its pros and its cons, it has their big wins and their big losses as well.
Yeah. Swings and
roundabouts. Who for you, talking of vibesy teams, Kieran, of the teams in the Premier League, who do you reckon this season has the most vibes? Who's the most vibey?
Well, if Tavares goes to any Prem team, then they're instantly Vibes FC.
Nuno Tavares, king of vibes.
Oh, mate, he's the vibe king. Vibes cartel for the man himself. He floats about. He thinks he's playing left back. He ends up top. Currently, it's a good question.
Tavares aside,
quick ponder.
Ponder away, sir.
I feel like Brighton.
Sorry, say that again.
Vibesy team. Brighton.
Okay.
I feel like they're
a very vibesy team.
Yeah, vibes. Nice down by the coast as well. You know, they're all chilled.
Adds to the vibes.
Bit of attacking football. They just respawn a South American wonder kid every season. You know, they're just living on vibes. So.
And nothing says Brighton. Vibes more like a South American wonder kid.
Oh, mate, I tell you.
If your team's got to have vibes.
South American wonder kid.
Can't wait to see vibes at every end of the Premier League season.
Spurs are vibes as well because they'll probably lose every game.
Well, that's going to be some level of vibes. That's going to be great vibes for us.
It's be vibes. I'll be vibing all season watching Spurs, so that'll be good fun. But yeah,
but vibes aside, you mentioned West Ham there.
Yeah, West Ham.
Where did you have West Ham placed as the last team in your little clump?
Yeah, I've got West Ham 14th. I'm happy to kind of roll this into the conversation for the bottom 5 as well, but. Yeah, I think they'll be okay, just about, because I don't know though. If Paquetá, sorry, if he goes, that's a big blow. So my answer could be swung if he goes to City, but at the minute, based on the few signings they look to be bringing in as well, I think they'll be okay. But let's roll that into the chat for your bottom 5 as well. And we'll discuss them in a bit more depth.
Run us through your bottom 5 and let us know sort of the 2 teams you think are just going to avoid it and the 3 teams you have nailed on to go down.
Yeah, so in order then, I've gone 16th Notts Forest, 17th Sheffield United. I think they'll just about scrape staying up. And then this could be a bit of a surprise because I've got 2 current sides in there that haven't just come up. I've got Everton 18th. I think they've kind of rode their luck too many times lately, and I think it's their time to go. Wolves 19th. I think they're in big trouble this year, I'll be honest. And Luton stone bottom in 20th.
Stone bottom. There's not a chance for Luton. 5 points.
You know they'll draw at home to us. It just makes sense.
It's written in the stars. I don't know if the game has been announced yet, but if it's Friday night, then that game has a Luton 1-0 win, 70th minute corner goal written all over it.
100%. Their only home points all season will go away to Kenilworth Road, a cold Friday night, and it'll just be a disaster class. You can see it coming.
What I love, and I'm sure it's something we're going to touch on throughout the season, is no matter how good Arsenal are, Arsenal fans are so conditioned with PTSD that we will always think the worst. A bad thing is always around the corner. You can think Arsenal fans are as smug and annoying as possible, and in the most part, you are right. But one thing we also are is traumatised. Because every time, like going into this season, and we discussed it in the last pod, we have Arsenal to win the league. We spoke of all these good things, and in the same breath, we're also saying, yeah, we're definitely going to lose to Luton, who you have as stone bottom of the table.
We've been burnt too many times, mate. We're just used to it now. So, if I was old enough to remember the Invincible season, I would have still been convinced we'd lose every game the following season. It's just the way it is.
To paraphrase Giorgio Chiellini, it is the history of the Arsenal.
Oh God, yeah, it really is. It really is. Who have you got your bottom five then, pal?
So, going off that Luton discussion, I've actually got Luton to avoid the drop. I've got them in 16th. I've got Wolves in 17th. I agree with you. I think they're in for a very bad year, but I think they're going to just avoid it. I've got Everton in 18th, as you said there. You can only avoid this stuff for so long. As I'll discuss with you in a moment, their recruitment feels stale. When you're recruiting Ashley Young as a team that wants to avoid relegation, just feels dead in the water. I've got West Ham in 19th. I don't know if the new signings changed my opinion. Sort of similar to Brentford. I don't think I have enough time to sort of wash it over, but they just feel like they're a mess. And then Sheffield United, I've got 20th. Just don't feel like they stand a chance. I think my opinion on Sheffield United is very similar to your opinion on Luton.
Okay, interesting.
So where do you want to start?
Well, I've got Notts Forest in 16th. Obviously, we've already kind of discussed them, sorry. So I won't talk too much around that. I do think they're going to be a bit more in trouble this season. Like, I don't think they'll go down, but I think, they might struggle. I'll be honest. I can see them struggling.
You have them borderline.
They've got a few good players. We spoke around Gibbs-White. I just think defensively, they're not very strong, if I'm being honest. I have a lot of doubts over them. Obviously, Matt Turner joining them, I rate him as a keeper, so I think he'll definitely improve them in that sense. But a goalie can only do so much. When you're starting Nico Williams at fullback, I think you're struggling a bit. Obviously, you've got the likes of Chris Wood, who I don't think he starts all that much, but yeah, they are scraping the barrel a bit with some of their squad. Obviously, they've got a few exciting players. You've got the likes of Brennan Johnson. I think Alanga joined them from United as well, which interesting to see how he does. I do just think I think defensively is the big question marks for me, but I think they'll be safe. So we'll skip over that. Obviously, we've had a bit of a chat around them already, just to give a few more thoughts around that. So West Ham for you then. You've got them down there. Thoughts on West Ham?
As I said there, pal, they're a mess. They got given one of the biggest transfer cash boosts in recent memory for a club of that level. In that, like a club in the bottom end of the Premier League, they finished in the bottom half last season, and to use it on McTominay, Maguire, and James Ward-Prowse, they're not bad players. They're not going to be bad for West Ham, but are they going to have an impact on West Ham?
Yeah. They're not sort of...
Has David Moyes got Nigel Farage in it as number 2? Because this is one of the most Brexit-y things imaginable. Yeah. I don't understand it. Last season, the Conference League win, as massive as it was for West Ham, and is something that I'm sure a lot of those fans are going to take to the grave with them, it hid a really poor season.
Yeah. No, agreed. And Moyes is in his Brexit bag, in fairness to him. You've got to respect it.
I'm sure. He's on his Brexit bus. Like, you remember that bus that had the lines like the NHS on it?
Yeah.
That's what's going to be driving the West Ham players to and from games this season.
350 million a week that they've freed up from Declan Rice's wages.
350 million a week free from Declan Rice to go to Paqueta.
Just to touch on West Ham fans, they're a real fickle bunch. I've enjoyed them coming out the woodwork with some hatred on Declan Rice. Apparently he looks unhappy at Arsenal. I saw on Twitter this week, and then the Arsenal fans' replies of him holding the Community Shield with a big grin on his face was beautiful. But anyway, enough about West Ham fans. He did look absolutely miserable.
And it has been nice in my sort of Arsenal bias ways, it has been nice to see them after they were twerking for Man City to get Rice.
Oh, it's
They're like, oh
brilliant.
no, don't take my beloved player now, not this one.
Poetry.
Oh, lovely. Karma.
Poetry in motion. I had West Ham slightly higher. Obviously, I said 14th.
You did,
I
you
said
did.
I'd sort of allude to that. I think we've discussed quite a bit actually in previous podcasts about the importance of early business. I think West Ham have left this so late, as you said.
Yes.
They had that big boost of money with Declan Rice, and it's quite baffling how they've waited so long. I think they're going to have a really poor start to the season. I just think that experience really comes up big towards the end of the season and the run-in. I think even though they obviously had a very poor season, they kind of done enough at the end of the season. That experience got them through, and I can see the same ringing true this season. Obviously, as you said, Maguire, Ward-Prowse, I think they're solid signings. Very much not going to set the world alight, but yeah,
is like Maguire and McTominay especially are two players that have been on such poor form, especially Maguire. Like, he's not a player that's going to come into your defence and immediately be good. He's going to take a little bit of time, and you're buying him 2 days before the start of the season.
Yeah. I think if they had a full pre-season, it's a completely different conversation. But yeah, I do agree with you. I just think the back end of the season, like from January onwards, I think they'll kind of step up a bit. I think they'll be okay. But yeah, interesting to see how those signings bed in.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. They're a team that could really finish anywhere in this bottom half of the table, but I just don't see it. I look at that team and I just don't see a hope. But your hope for them is Luton, who I had,
just get 6 points at Luton.
You had Stone bottom, so that'll give them six for safety.
Luton. Where do I start with Luton? I look at that squad. I don't see one good thing in that
You
squad.
don't think Pelly, Ruddock and Panzu, Bournemouth legend, is going to steer them to safety?
Oh, okay. Him aside. Obviously, they've brought in Ross Barkley on a free.
Which was mental.
Very strange one. When clubs start doing that and scraping the barrel with players that are a bit past it, and he's not going to be motivated. He's probably on good wages. He's going to rock the boat. He's going to be getting paid more than the rest of the squad combined. They're all gonna hate him. Oh my God, Cod! I'm just looking through the Luton squad as well, and I'm seeing Matt Macey in there.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up to you. Arsenal legend Matt Macey.
Oh, so, they're definitely stone bottom now.
One second. This is a story that, like, my and your love for Matt Macey needs a little bit of explanation. So, myself and Kieran went to a few Arsenal under-21 games who play at the Bournemouth ground, which is where we're both from. So we went down, watched a couple of Bournemouth games, and Matt Macey put in Hall of Shame level goalkeeping performances. The sort of goalkeeping performance I would expect from a 5-year-old playing in a 11-a-side goal for the first time. And it was magical. I don't think I've ever witnessed comedy like it since Only Fools and Horses first aired on TV. It was unbelievable. So I don't know if I might be changing my opinion on Luton there. But fuck it. Matt Macey and Pelly Ruddock are going to lead them to safety. Meadow Park legends.
God, even more so now they're coming stone bottom. Sorry to Matt Macey, but you're just not a good keeper, mate. You're just not good. Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't watch a ball of Championship games last season, so I don't want to speak too much around them. I just can't see a full team of what is Championship level players doing anything in the Prem. I'm waiting to be proven wrong. Yeah. But
do you know why I honestly have them 16th? It's not even about the players they have. It's not. This is the one position where I'm not looking at it on analytically and who the players they have and how the team gels. I am looking at it from a pure vibes mentality point of view. And Luton from a fan base down to players, down to everything about that club, I feel like they're going to be completely geared towards staying up for at least a season. And sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, I get that. I think I just can't see him getting any points. 38 0-0. That's their only hope.
Yeah, they want to be there. They're not getting a point, mate. What?
That
One
could be
second.
their
Arsenal
only
still have
hope.
to come to Kenilworth Road.
Oh yeah, shit. They'll get 3 points. They'll end the season on 3 points. They might get a point at the Emirates as well, so let's give them 4 points.
Yeah, it don't work for every team that comes up. But every now and then a team comes up that they just, through pure willpower, they somehow survive. And you look back at the end of the season, like, how the fuck are they not down?
Yeah,
and I feel like
I
Luton will
think
be
Sheffield
that club.
United. You know when they had that infamous random formation,
Yeah.
where their centre backs ended up front somehow.
Iconic.
If they can mirror that, they might have a chance. But I'm not convinced at all.
Yeah, I've got, talking of Sheffield United, I feel similar to them how you do about Luton. For a team that was in the Premier League recently, I just don't feel like that's a team that's built for the Premier League at all, with none of the motivational mentality that Luton may have. I just feel like they're going to sort of end up bottom at Christmas and that'll be them done.
Yeah, I think my thoughts with Sheffield United and why I have them just scraping staying up is that Prem experience. I think that's a big thing when you come into the Prem, having a few like old heads that know the league. You've got obviously, I think John Fleck's still there, who was solid enough. You got the likes of like Ryan Brewster or Ollie McBurney up top. I don't rate them all that highly if I'm being honest. But I just think
Do you not
like
think
Norwood,
sometimes
having a few players in there that know the league.
Yeah. Do you not think that sometimes that will breed into a bit of complacency for Sheffield United? They'll think, oh, I've been here before, I've done this before, I'll be all right. And the next thing you know, you're down a few goals away from home and it'll be a real struggle, as that really could happen to them. I think they're going to have a really rocky time of it this season.
I think potentially, but I think it's such a big thing for teams coming up from the Championship. You've got the fan base right up for every game. I just think with that little bit more experience in the team, I can see them scraping it, if I'm being honest. I just think they'll get enough results. I can't see them doing anything special. I just think they'll get enough results to stay up. And the three teams I've got below them, I just think are worse, which is partly why I have them just staying up. Obviously, they brought in Austin Trusty as well from Arsenal. He looks a decent little centre back as well. He could kind of go in and kind of strengthen them a bit. Obviously, we just discussed that season they had when they first came up to the Prem, and they done really well and were just so hard to beat. I remember watching us draw to them 1-1 during COVID, and it was just a fucking dreadful game, and we looked awful, and they completely dominated us. But if they can kind of re-galvanise that squad with that bit of experience, then maybe they will be okay. But I get your point. I think they'll be in trouble, but I can just see them just staying up.
Wolves, who just sacked Lopetegui right before the season, brought in Gary O'Neill, who was with Bournemouth at the tail end of last season.
Yeah,
what do you reckon?
I think they're a mess. Obviously, Neves going, big blow. Jimenez is gone. Cody's gone. Nathan Collins is gone. Like the only players that looked decent last season.
Yeah.
Obviously, bar Jimenez was out for a while, but they're gone. And the mess over the manager, obviously, they've only just sorted that out now. Gary O'Neill done well at Bournemouth last season, but I don't know if he's the man to come in and really galvanise that squad. I don't think they got enough. I just think the players I think they're going to have a real bad season. I can't see anything in that squad that is filling me with any hope for them, if I'm being honest.
100%. And you say there about players as well, and players that have gone because of the money troubles they've had. They've been trying to fit into financial fair play. That's why some of these players have gone, and they've been having sort of trouble with the ownership and financial fair play, and that's something that could really roll into the season. They've not been able to replace these players that have gone. They've got, in terms of strength from the squad, they've just not been able to. So I think it's going to be a real struggle for Wolves this season. I'm in full agreement with you there. I think for everything we've sort of listed, Gary O'Neill has a mammoth job on his hands.
Yeah, I think They could be in big trouble, and they've got a very thin squad as well, as you just said. They've not really been able to strengthen at all. So, one or two injuries. I think they've got a couple of decent attackers in there. They've still got the likes of Pedro Neto, Podence, but they're them sort of players that you just want a bit more from them. Like whenever I've watched the Wolves game, I'm like, just give me a bit more. So if a couple injuries, then they're looking really, really thin. So.
Yeah, in full agreement there. So the last team I think we have is Everton.
Yeah, another horror show for them this summer, I think.
Yeah, we've both got them in the same position.
Yeah, thoughts for you then, Everton?
I should say their kids
finally going down.
Yeah, a horror show in the transfer window. Bringing in Ashley Young in the year of our Lord 2023. Sean Dyche should be shot into the moon for such a crime.
It's a Sean Dyche signing though, isn't it, really?
It's a massive Sean Dyche signing. But when Sean Dyche came in, he was meant to firm them up defensively, do classic Sean Dyche things. And they still somehow survived. Like, that wasn't... They didn't survive because of Sean Dyche. They survived by some sort of miracle of Christ. Like that is the only
Lord
reason.
wanted Goodison Park in the Prem next season.
I hope during pre-season Sean Dyche went on a pilgrimage to Lourdes in France, because that's the sort of shit he should have been doing. He should have been doing the Lourdes, Vatican, Jerusalem triple threat to make prayers all over the shop for the sort of divine interference that kept them up last season. And I don't think they're going to be helped by the Lord again.
I'll be honest, the only pilgrimage Dyche has done in pre-season is the trip to his local boozer. He's not doing any pilgrimage. Bit of Foster's. He loves a 4-pack of Foster's. I can just picture him in his garden, reading old versions of the page 3 in the Sun, and just with a can of Foster's in hand.
The closest thing to a pilgrimage to Lourdes he gets is one of those spoons that have like weird names, like the Lord of Hounds or something.
He signed up to the Weatherspoons newsletter as well. I'll put money on that.
He definitely has a column in, that weird Brexit newspaper that's on this spoons table whenever you go in there.
Yeah,
he's got a little column at the back.
Dycheisms. He's got his own little column. I'd read that.
I hate Sean Dyche.
Just for entertainment. Do you, pal? It's not apparent at all.
This is something we're going to go into on a later podcast. But my hatred for Sean Dyche, I don't think it's clouding my judgment here, but it very, very might could. See, he's annoyed me so much I can't even speak the English language. But he's a man that just irritates me, and the fact he's so lauded irritates me even more. So I'll be delighted if and when. But if you want to give me some actual footballing reasons rather than just that I don't like Sean Dyche,
just vibes.
Go for it.
They're just a bit shit, really, aren't they? they're just not very good at football. They're just, I think they've rode their luck enough times. I'll be honest, the only player I rate in that squad is Onana. I think whenever I've watched Everton, he's a really solid midfielder. So if I was him, get out of there, mate. Other than that, Iwobi's look good in parts. Again, a player I like, obviously being ex-Arsenal, but I just think they do not have enough. And in the words of Ty from Arsenal Fan TV, Neil Maupay, you're a disgrace, and I hope Everton get relegated. Just to see Maupay go down would bring tears of joy to my eyes. So
I actually think this Everton chat has more biased hatred than the Spurs chat. I think the Spurs chat was quite level, does. And we actually spoke about Spurs as a team. This is just fuck them. They've got their team of wankers. They gave us 40 million for Iwobi. Thank you. Good night. Get out.
They're just annoying, aren't they? They're just annoying. So I think, it's their time to go down. So that wraps it up for me.
In the words of your ginger fella off of TikTok, who I've not seen in a while, Everton in my Premier League, get out.
Get out.
Indeed.
And a little story about Mr. Luke Bennett.
Oh God!
a quick aside, which speaks to my character, is I actually paid actual money, British pound sterling, for a cameo from
at the
from
time
that man,
the Queen's pounds.
The Queen's pounds, I believe it was £15 or something I paid for him to tell your dearest self, Con, and our other friend, Mr. Charlie Wills, that he'd been scranning your Christmas dinner and to get out. I believe.
Yeah.
So good times.
And I think it may have been one of the greatest Christmas presents I've received since I came down at 7 years old to see a bike in my living room. So, you did a good job.
Merry Christmas to you. And on
And
that
with
lovely
that,
note,
Kieran
I think
John,
that wraps up our Prem predictions.
it does indeed. So after we'll call it a break. After the swoosh, we'll round up our FPL teams, have a quick discussion there, and our bonus predictions will come on the end of that. So, Kieran, we now, right on the eve of the Premier League starting, right on the eve, more importantly, of the Fantasy Premier League season starting. Last season, do you want to just sort of let all the people know
No.
who was the
No.
big time winner of the league that we share?
I prefer not to speak.
Oh, that's okay. I'll do it for you. The winner of the league last season, and the winner of 2 of the last 3 seasons, has been yours truly. From Australia as well. I was working on a time delay, and I still wiped the floor with you. So we're gonna
the season
roll straight.
before last, I'm sure I won it, didn't I?
That doesn't matter. We're all about the season just before. We're always live in the present, So we're going to get into the new season, talking of living in the present. Kieran, do you want to tell us your team name, run us through your starting 11 and your subs as well?
Yeah. So, need a bit of redemption this season. It was a bit of a horror show last year.
An absolute sham.
I had a mini period where I kind of stormed it a bit and came back into it, but it was too little too late. And then, the last week just was a horror show. So, team name as always, which is quite ironic given where I came last season, is League Toppers. Speaking it into existence, bit of manifestation for this season. Hopefully we'll reclaim my rightful title. So, starting 11 going into the first week, and giving away some secrets here. So it could be a dangerous game to play. So I'm putting my unwavering trust in you here. So I've gone in goal. I've got Anana. Back 4, I've got Estupinan, Stones, and I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation as I always do, but John Stones, Saliba, Trent Alexander-Arnold, got Bruno Fernandes, Enciso of Brighton. Speaking of random wonder kids that respawn at Brighton every season.
From South America.
Yeah, the man himself. I've got Starboy himself, Bukayo Saka, what a man. Got Martinelli in there. Diaby, who's obviously the new signing at Aston Villa. And, of course, boring Haaland up top, who will score goals. He scores goals, it's what he does. Then, quickly, my bench going into the first game week is Leno, Wissa of Brentford, Reece James, and Cameron Archer.
I've got Ederson in goal. I've got Estupinan, Saliba, John Stones as a back 3. And then in midfield, I've got Bukayo Saka, Starboy himself, Rashers, Marcus Rashford, Eze, and Douglas Luiz. I've got Alexander Isak, Erling Haaland, and João Pedro. On the bench, we've got Matt Turner, Ben Mee, Luis Diaz, and Reece James. And that is Love is Actually.
I like it. Very attacking little team you got there, pal.
Build them points up, girl.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Obviously, Isak, you all know my love for that big Swede.
He's been one of your boys for a fair while now.
Yeah, I've been raving about the man for years, hoping that he'd join Arsenal. And obviously, we went for Big Gabby Jesus and he ended up signing for Newcastle. So, a player I've rated for many a year, and I have love for the big Swede.
Yeah, up until literally 2 minutes before recording, I had Emi Buendia in the team, and then I went to check my team and found out that he's now a big old red mark, out for a long time player. So he was replaced with Douglas Luiz. That's where Luiz came in.
Fair play. Captain Haaland, is that an obvious question?
Yes.
Yeah, boring stuff, but it's got to be done, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, it's one of them things. Hopefully he sort of has a slow start to the season and FPL gets blown wide open. But, yeah, it's got to be Haaland.
So, yeah, interesting to see how we how we go in that. I think we've got a few
Yeah.
similar players in there. There's a few, obviously, FPL gems that are usually in the squads, but then a few little wild cards in there as well. So
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
sure as the season goes on, those teams are going to chop and change. You got to try and hold your nerve for those first 5 weeks of the season, get a good feel for it, and then all bets are off. I'm sure if you look at your team from last season, last game of the season to the first game, there's a massive change. So it's all going to be all guns are blazing. But we'll check back in every week, see how we're getting on. Watch me go further and further ahead of you, and we'll have to come up with a little podcast based forfeit for the loser, which we'll decide throughout the season.
Disclaimer
but other
as
than
well,
that,
my whole squad could completely change before the weekend, so you never know.
It's going to be 2 minutes before that City Burnley game, and your head's just going to go, and it's going to be a complete panic. You're going to be like West Ham with that 100 million, not knowing what to do. So yeah, we'll check back in next week with the fantasy teams. Last of this week's podcast, we're going to have our final bonus predictions for the season and set up our game predictions for this weekend. So, to round out this week's podcast, we've got a couple of bonus predictions, and then we'll set up our game predictions for the first battle of the season. So, we have 3 bonus predictions. They are the top goal scorer, which I think is going to be boring, if I'm honest, top assists, the first sacking of the season, and then a couple of just general predictions for the season. So, top scorer, do we have to discuss this, Kieran? Haaland?
Yeah, no, that big freak of a Norwegian up top. Jobs are done.
A disgusting human being. It's just, I don't even know why we bothered even having it as a prediction. It's not a prediction, it's a spoiler. So we're all straight into top assists.
Yeah, top assists. I've gone for the star boy himself, Bukayo Saka.
I've actually gone for the same. I think we might have very similar thoughts on this, but with Saka, I think if Arsenal are going to do... Last season he got 12 assists, I think it was, or maybe 11. But if we're going to do well this season, his creativity is once again going to be vital. His goal creation is once again going to be vital. He's just a vital cog to that Arsenal team.
Yeah, agreed. Same reasoning, really. I just think I'm confident for us this season. He's a big part of that. And I think, our few signings just kind of add that bit of strength and depth that will kind of gel the team even more together and open up even more opportunities for Saka to get at the fullbacks and terrorise them as he was doing all of last season. So,
yeah, 100%. So the final one, maybe a bit more of a conversation on this one. First sacking of the season. Who have you got and why?
Yeah, so it's quite funny actually. Originally, when we were putting our predictions together, I had the Wolves manager, who is obviously now left. So I think technically I'll just claim that I was right on that one.
If he could have waited like 2 more days, if he'd have got to Friday evening, you would have been flying. But
they let me down. But I have gone for Bournemouth's Andoni Iraola. And again, I'm sure I've butchered that. But yeah, thoughts is just Bournemouth. I think they're just, obviously, I think they've got new ownership in, spent a bit of money, and I think they're one of those teams that want instant results. So it's not necessarily, I think they're going to be the worst team in the league. Obviously, I had them down as 15th, so I don't actually see them going down. I just think if they start poorly, I can see the ownership getting a bit restless and he'll end up getting the sack, which was my thoughts behind that, to be honest.
Yeah, the thing with Bournemouth is I know it's new ownership, but they've never really been a team to really throw a manager out until they feel like they have to. And with you having them not high, but avoiding that sort of relegation scrap, I thought that was a surprising one. But I get you. If they start to struggle, a new ownership could very quickly turn against him. I think he's safe. I think the other thing with a new ownership is they don't want to give that impression that they're going to sack every manager that moves. So they're going to, I think they'll give him a good while to bed. And if they're in the bottom 3 still in like the beginning of next year, I think maybe he will be in trouble. But in terms of first sacking, I think he should be safe.
I think just the fact they got rid of Gary O'Neill after a pretty good season is what's kind of making me think that they're quite, potentially a bit erratic. So that was the thinking.
Yeah,
there.
But they clearly wanted their man in, and this guy is their man.
Yeah. Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, but I've gone for David Moyes. All of the reasons I said about West Ham reflect on him. I think if they didn't win the Conference League last season, or potentially if they didn't make the Conference League final last season, he was on death's door, managerially speaking. I just have no real hope for them. I think by October, the West Ham ownership are going to look at him, look at West Ham struggling, and pull the trigger. I can't see him making it to the international break in October.
Okay. I think West Ham will have a poor start to the season. Yeah, I just think potentially their involvement in Europe and the fact that they might see David Moyes as obviously not the sole reason they're in there, but they might just want to give him the chance. But yeah, I think that could be... There's definitely potential for that to happen.
That will be the interesting one to keep track of, because it feels like most seasons there's one manager that's like, oh yeah, they're going to be gone very, very soon. And it feels like that manager's already gone. So it's an open race, if you will, for who it could be.
Be interesting to see. Obviously, there's usually a very early sacking in the season, so we'll see who that ends up being.
Yeah. And finally, on the season prediction front, Kieran, have you got any general predictions for me? Just things, moments, players, non-trophy winner, non-league position based that you want to throw out there, put your name to before the season starts, so you can look back smugly on at the end of the season and say, "Yep, I called that."
Look back with hanging my head in shame, more likely. I think
more likely.
Martinelli will be Arsenal's top scorer and win our player of the season, which may not sound like too bold a prediction, but I think with the talent we've got in that squad, I think he's very underrated. He's just a very exciting player, but now he's added the numbers to his game as well. I can see him. I might even go as far to say will be in the... I'll say he'll be the second top scorer in the Prem this season. Let's go a bit bold.
Oh, big. He's gone big call.
Behind Haaland. I'll go big.
Yeah, I've got a similar one to that. I think Marcus Rashford is going to be unleashed. He's now in his mid-20s. He's basically in his prime now, which feels mad for Rashford because he's been around forever, but he's like, 24, 25 now, that kind of age. I have Rashford 25 plus goals, finishing to second to Haaland in the Golden Boot. I have Rashford having just an unbelievable season this year.
Okay. Probably one of my slightly more bold predictions, obviously, as well. I had Man City in third, so I think that in itself is a bit of a statement to have them come in third after, obviously, on the back of a treble. So that could come back to shoot me, if I'm being honest. But I just think it could be the season they drop off. Obviously, we mentioned about the hunger potentially not being there for next year, so that's my reason in there.
Talking of bold ones, do you want to hear my boldest prediction I've got? You were talking about ones at the end of the season, maybe hanging your head in shame. I reckon Jurgen Klopp will either be sacked or announce that he's stepping down by the end of the season. I don't think he'll be Liverpool manager after the last day of the season.
Okay, that is an interesting one. As someone who's got Liverpool down to come second, I have to disagree with that, but that would be a turn up for the books. I think there might be riots in Merseyside if that happens, but
I don't know. I've got them finishing 7th, so I think that plays a part in my prediction there. But we will see. We'll look back on these, as you say, Kieran, probably with shame as the season goes on. But before we leave for the week, Kiers, we've got some predictions to make for this weekend. So we've selected 5 of the 10 games this weekend. The way we're going to work this, Kiers, is if you get the result right, so if you get the team or a draw, then you get 1 point. If you get the correct scoreline, you get 3 points. And we will top those up. Whoever gets the most will win the weekend. And we'll just go back and forth throughout the year, see who wins the most weekends by the end of the season. And that'll be another one we'll get a little prize/forfeit for on that last weekend.
So the five games we're going for then?
Yeah, so we'll just say the game, and then if you give me your prediction, I'll give you mine. Then we'll jump into next. So the first game, start of the Premier League season. Tomorrow, I believe it's 8 o'clock UK time, 5 a.m. Saturday morning Australia time. It's Burnley against Man City. What you got for me?
Yes. I reckon a big win for City, statement to start the season. I think 4-0 City to start off.
very similar. I've got 4-1.
Bournemouth, West Ham then?
I've got 2-0 Bournemouth.
Yeah, similar vein for me. I've got 3-1 Bournemouth.
Yeah, I think both of these sort of reflect on what we have for the teams. West Ham, I reckon, are going to really struggle. That'll start off against Bournemouth. I think City will have one of their classic, just bouldering wins. So Newcastle Villa next.
Yeah, I've gone 1-0 Villa for this one.
Okay, I've gone 2-1 Newcastle.
Yeah.
So we've got our first difference of opinion there.
Yeah. I just think Newcastle might not be at the same level they were last year, and I think Villa have made some really smart signings. So I think I can see Villa edging that to start the season, which might be a bit of a...
I think it could be a very good game. Next up, we go to the Sunday games. First up, we have Brentford against Tottenham.
Yeah, I'm going 2-1 Brentford.
I really thought about giving Brentford the win, but I've gone against my better instincts, I think, and I've gone 3-1 Spurs.
Okay. I was going to go 1-1, but I decided on a Brentford win in the end.
That's very fair. I think that could very much happen. It's going to be an interesting one, but if it does happen, Spurs really could be spinning from the off. That's kind of what we predicted. The final game, Chelsea against Liverpool.
I've gone 1-1.
I've gone 1-1.
There you go. Great minds. Or simple minds.
There you go.
You decide.
I think that'll be decided come 6 o'clock Sunday evening.
Yeah, exciting
times.
So, exciting times.
We've got our Premier League predictions done. We've got our game predictions for the weekend done. I think that makes it podcast done.
I believe so. A pleasure as always. And just rounding out, obviously no game this week. Are we still ending on a song? Is the real question.
Well, I think we should, and I've got the perfect song in mind. I was looking earlier on at the Super Sunday Sky Sports openings across the years.
No way, because I had the exact same thought as you.
Oh, what song did you think?
Written in the Stars is the one I went for.
Oh, that is a phenomenal shout. I went for Moloko, The Time Is Now. So I went mid-2000s, you went sort of the early 2010s. I think we go for old Tinie himself. I think your sister, who is was one of the biggest Tinie Tempah fans around, would cause a cancellation campaign if we didn't. So playing us out.
It's only right.
Written in the Stars by Tinie Tempah. Enjoy the opening weekend of the Premier League, everyone. And we'll see you same place, same time next week. Have a good one.